And we're back. All right. The person who wrote this is named Erica Newland, Newland, Erica Newland. And she worked in the Office of Legal Counsel at the Justice Department during 2016, 2017, and 2018. Some of the really terrible years of abuse perpetrated by the Orange Bastard. But let me just share with you what she said. I was an attorney at the Justice Department when Donald Trump was elected president. I worked in the Office of Legal Counsel, which is where presidents turn for permission slips that say their executive orders and other contemplated actions are lawful. I joined the department during the Obama administration as a career attorney whose work was supposed to be independent of politics. Now, let me pause for a second, because if you'll remember the Office of Legal Counsel, that one of the people who squatted in there was John Yoo, who worked for George W. Bush. And it was Yoo who is now, I think he still is, a professor at Berkeley. It was John Yoo who came up with the idea that the United States could authorize torture of people we had captured who had been charged for nothing, even if they'd been charged for something. Torture? Are we that medieval now? Are we that Christianized that we're going to use torture? But it was the Office of Legal Counsel, which must be just a shithole. It's supposed to be independent of politics. Are you kidding me? Not with a Republican administration, it's not. But I'm sure Ms. Newland is talking about the way it was structured and the way it has been handled, one hopes, under Democratic administrations, although I have my doubts about some of that too. But anyway, back to what Ms. Newland wrote. I never harbored delusions about a Trump presidency. Mr. Trump readily volunteered that his agenda was to disassemble our democracy, but I made a choice to stay at the Justice Department, home to some of the country's finest lawyers, for as long as I could bear it. I believed that I could better serve our country by pushing back from within than by keeping my hands clean. But I have come to reconsider that decision. My job was to tailor the Trump administration's executive actions to make them lawful. In narrowing them, I could also make them less destructive. I remained committed to trying to uphold my oath, even as the president refused to uphold his. But there was a trade-off. We attorneys diminished the immediate harmful impacts of President Trump's executive orders, but we also made them more palatable to the courts. This burst into public view early in the Trump administration in the litigation over the executive order banning travel from several predominantly Muslim countries, which my office approved. The first Muslim ban was rushed out the door. It was sweeping and sloppy. The courts quickly put a halt to it. The successive discriminatory bans benefited from more time and attention from the department's lawyers, who narrowed them, but also made them more technocratic and therefore harder for the courts to block. After the Supreme Court's June 2018 decision upholding the third Muslim ban, I reviewed my own portfolio, which included matters targeting non-citizens, dismantling the civil service, and camouflaging the president's corruption. Overcome with fear that I was doing more harm than good, by Thanksgiving of that year, 2018, I had left my job. Still, I felt I was abandoning the ship. I continued to believe that a critical mass of responsible attorneys staying in government might provide a last line of defense against the Trump administration's worst instincts. Even after I left, I advised others that they could do good by staying. News reports about meaningful pushback by Justice Department attorneys seem to confirm this thinking. I was wrong. Watching the Trump campaign's attacks on the election results, I now see what might have happened if, rather than nip and tuck the Trump agenda, responsible Justice Department attorneys had collectively, ethically, lawfully refused to participate in Trump's systematic attacks on our democracy from the beginning. The attacks would have failed. Unlike the Trump Justice Department, the Trump campaign has relied on second-rate lawyers who lack the skills to maintain the president's charade. After a recent oral argument from Rudy Giuliani, a Republican judge, Matthew Brann, wrote that the campaign had offered, quote, strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations, unpled in the operative complaint and unsupported by evidence, end quote. Even judges appointed by Trump have refused to throw their lot in with lawyers who can't master the basic mechanics of lawyering. After 4 years of bulldozing through one institution after another on the backs of skilled lawyers, the Trump agenda hit a brick wall. The story of Trump campaign's attacks on our election could have been the story of the Trump administration's 4-year-long attack on our institutions. If early on the Justice Department lawyers charged with selling the administration's lies had emptied the ranks, withholding our talents and reputations and demanding the same of our professional peers, the work of defending President Trump's policies would have been left to the types of attorneys now representing his campaign. Lawyers like Mr. Giuliani would have had to defend the Muslim ban in court. Had that happened, judges would have likely dismantled the Trump facade from the beginning, stopping the momentum of his ugliest and most destructive efforts and bringing much-needed accountability early in his presidency. Before the 2020 election, I was haunted by what I didn't do, by all the ways I failed to push back enough. Now, after the 2020 election, I'm haunted by what I did. The trade-off wasn't worth it. In giving voice to those trying to destroy the rule of law and dignifying their efforts with our talents and even our basic competence, we enabled that destruction. Were we doing enough good elsewhere to counterbalance the harm we facilitated, the way a public health official might accommodate the president on the margins to push forward on vaccine development? Were we doing enough? No. No matter our intentions, we were complicit. We collectively perpetuated an anti-democratic leader by conforming to his assault on reality. We may have been victims of the system, but we were also its instruments. No matter how much any one of us pushed back from within, we did so as members of a professional class of government lawyers who enabled an assault on our democracy, an assault that nearly ended it. We owe the country our honesty about that and about what we saw. We owe apologies. I offer mine here. Well, okay. To err is human, to forgive is divine. Isn't that what accepting an apology is? Well, let me just put 2 words to that. Fuck no. Absolutely no is more amenable to a broadcast program. I'm sorry for the use of the F word again. But Erica Newland now, with her mea culpa in the New York Times, what are we supposed to do, Miss Newland? Just say, oh, yeah, well, we get it. Okay, right. We understand. You were part of a cadre of lawyers who goddamn well knew better. You knew better. You knew what you were doing. And this bullshit about staying in the Trump administration to keep the guardrails up has proven time and time and time again over the past 4 years to be ridiculous bullshit. This baby-faced monster in the White House had about as much respect for guardrails as he does for the Constitution. He just kicked them down. So no, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying anything from these attorneys, no matter how conflicted they were at the time, who stayed on and were complicit. By her own words, she says she was complicit in this destruction, and now you want an apology? How do we undo this, Ms. Newland? How do we undo what you facilitated, you and other attorneys, career attorneys like you, who knew better? God damn it, you knew what you were doing, and yet you did it anyway. And now you come to us, so to speak, with an op-ed piece in the New York Times asking for, or offering your apology. Sorry, Madam Attorney, no, fuck no. I don't know what's going to happen, but you in the legal profession knew what was going on. Just like John Yoo, that rotten son of a bitch who winds up as a professor at Berkeley. You folks knew what you were doing. You said it in your first couple of paragraphs. Why didn't you, in the moment, refuse to be complicit in these acts against the U.S. Constitution? You took an oath. All of you people took an oath. And yet you willingly were complicit in not just turning your oath into dirt, but attempting to destroy the democratic process in this country. You know that's what Trump set out to do. You said it in your op-ed. Sorry, Ms. Newland. No. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.